So
It's a
how's
spot.
everything, man?
Pretty good. Pretty
Yeah.
good. Just you know, ready to relax a little bit after work and just like getting to things. But yeah, just thinking also, the drive over is just how much things have changed in the past few years,
Yeah, I agree
right?
with that, man. I mean, the day to day. This is one of the reasons why I kind of like stopped watching the news these days because it's just
Yeah.
making me feel depressed, bro.
Yeah, I mean, when we were all home and we are just scrolling, we are just doing that doom scrolling, right?
Yeah,
So I've
yeah,
definitely been off social media more since then.
right.
I mean, I'm on there now just partly to stay connected with my friends through Messenger, but also just really just to promote the different arts I'm a part of.
Right.
But what are your thoughts on that? Because I know you had to move a few times during the process, and we did too. And what do you think of that when it comes
Well,
to?
yeah. Originally, uh, we were in New York. We were living in Queens. In a all Asian neighborhood. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of Thai people, Nepalese,
Yeah.
Filipinos. But as soon as the pandemic started hitting, things just started to change a bit. You know, more desperate people,
Yep.
uh, and things are just getting like hectic, man. I mean, it was already like you gotta understand that area was already kind of like very bad already.
Okay.
But the pandemic just made it worse, and so people are just like robbing more. Um, the crime rate and everything is going up high, especially being Asian. Like for all the Asians that's living there,
Yeah.
they've gotta watch their back.
Yeah, I think about that a lot too, especially in terms of martial arts, since we both practiced for a while,
Right.
and it's kind of like, what role does that really play, right? I'm confident that it does play one, but it's kind of like, how does it really fit in?
Right.
So this is good
Yeah, it is
to
good.
to switch the mood for a moment,
Yeah.
but with that, it's just training by itself enough, right? So like one of my coaches, Helder Gomes, he always talks about situational awareness, right? And
Hmm.
and it's something he always emphasized to me because he would say, yeah, physically, the physical part, you're gonna be fine,
I gotta meet
you
him
know.
one day.
Yeah, yeah,
I always hear you talk about him a lot.
yeah. And by the way, Coach, thanks for supporting the channel. I see your comments,
Thank you.
but
Thank you.
but it's one of those things where being aware of where you are, right? Being aware of people, right? Being able to observe certain things,
Right.
and probably just the surface of what he would talk about,
Hmm.
and how much does that play a role when it comes to martial arts, self defense, combat sports,
Right.
right? Because I mean, we both love martial arts and
Correct.
we both love combat sports, right?
Hmm.
But how much do those actually connect, with self defense? It's like, I was curious about your thoughts on that too.
Well, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of people that's probably gonna disagree what I say, but when it comes to like sports martial arts, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot at play, I mean, and there's a lot of rules in sports. But when it comes to self defense, there's really no rules, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and particularly like strikers in a way, right? Some, there's chances people gonna have weapons, people gonna bring you down to the ground.
Yeah.
Those are like situations that you got to be aware, especially like strikers that never did ground fighting, nothing like that,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
that thing bound to happen, and yeah, of course, if you're a good striker, you could probably like stop situations from being on the ground.
Sure.
Um, but I think in self defense, you have to be aware of everything. Even if you just walking down the street, if you see something weird, right? You just walk a different way. The
Yeah.
best martial arts is to avoid the situation if you really think about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it may sound corny and a bit cliche that people say this all the
Yeah.
time, like, oh, the best self defense is avoidance,
Yeah.
right?
No be there, as Mr.
No,
Miyagi would
yeah,
say,
yeah,
right?
yeah. But it's true. I mean, like to live another day is much better. You know, like just avoid trouble at all costs. But there are times you can't. And will your martial art help you defend yourself? That's the thing,
Hmm.
right?
And defending yourself can mean a lot of different
Yeah,
things, right?
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like self defense out there that teaches you and prepares you, and then they'll say, well, they can teach you this and that, right? But you know, a lot of people are scared of self defense when they take it. It says, oh, it's gonna take forever to learn, right?
Yeah,
They want to find something they can learn now, right? Like how would you do that, right? So that's why a lot of people avoid it.
yeah. I don't know if there's, and I know this may run against what some instructors might say, but I don't know if there is a such thing as something that you can learn right now that could
Yeah,
immediately
I
transform
totally
you,
agree.
right?
I mean, this is best. This is the best solution that everybody's gonna say, and I would hear it in the comments a lot. Use a gun,
Yeah,
right? But how is everybody gonna when are they gonna have a way to get to grab themselves a gun? Not a lot of people have guns, man.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
One, this they're not cheap.
Yeah,
That automatically excludes some people. And two, the process that you might have to go through is going to vary from state to state,
yeah.
right?
It's not just that. Like normal people, you say use a gun. Are they able to shoot somebody? That's the thing. Not a lot of people are
Yeah,
able to pull that trigger and just be
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, I'm good now.
That's
You know?
it's a terrifying thought.
Yeah,
That's you can't call that back once you've done it, right?
right. I mean, how do you feel about it, Al? Like, since I mean, you never been in that situation as well.
Never have so far. And hopefully not in the future. But I mean, when I hear stories about it, it already like I feel like that chilling, like scary feeling that that
Mm-hmm.
like I could only imagine like how that person felt in that situation.
Well, take it like this too. Like, Frank and I were married. That's the
Not to each
biggest
other.
worry, huh?
Not to each other.
Not to each other.
Yeah, yeah. But
You, we're married to women, okay. But jokes to the side, it's kind of like since we're married to women, right? Now we got to think about them now too,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
just ourselves. Because now, you're thinking about yourself, and since now you're starting to probably find somebody, you're gonna
Mhm.
think about her too.
Yeah, I mean, like when we like seeing each other, like I like even out when we're just walking, at the boardwalk, we walk in the boardwalks by the beach. I'm like more aware now that I have to like look at like like not just for my sake, also her sake too.
Yeah, you have to
So
be like
like
that.
like even though it's just like that one person just walking and I don't know who that person is and it's scary. It's scary that like I'm not just protecting myself, I'm also have to protecting her.
Yeah,
So like I said, I never been at gunpoint. I never been at a knife point. But
Yeah.
I've been in a fist fight, two fist fights, and I lost both, admittedly. But it's still scary though, like to see like that person could be dangerous.
yeah.
So
You can't. You don't.
you never know. You never know.
Correct.
You can never judge a book by its cover.
Right.
So
You didn't lose, you learned.
I learned.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
yeah, on a serious note, it's like
yeah.
I know this might be a little darker than our previous topics, but everyone thinks about safety.
Of course.
Especially anyone who looks at the news, and admittedly the news pumps the negative stories more than the positive stories.
Right.
But
It's one of the reasons why I moved out of New York.
mm,
But that's the thing, man. Like you always got to worry about situations like that all the time.
I love visiting New York,
Yeah.
but I just can't imagine living there.
We're not shit talking about New York. I still go to New York.
I love New York.
I love New York.
Yeah, I
but
love
it's
going
just,
to Chinatown. Amazing
Yeah,
establishments,
yeah.
other places also, but yeah. I mean, also coming from a relatively small town, coming from the South,
Mhm.
this area is still relatively new to me. I love
Right,
it here, like New
right.
Jersey, New York. I love it
Right.
here, but it's just difficult to envision living in places where it's that shoulder to shoulder. You know,
Right.
it's like as far as actually living there day to day.
Right.
But I do remember, pre-pandemic, I was going up to New York to train all the time. Had my stride job friend Lavelle Marshall out there at the time,
Right.
and Matt Gelfand. So I would go up there, probably upwards to 2 times a week. So I got to know the subway systems fairly well. And I remember
You were living in Jersey at the
I
time?
was living in Jersey at the time, so I would take the commute by bus into Port Authority, and from there I would take the train to different parts of the city. And and I just remember, last time I took the train before the pandemic was like early 2020, like a month before everything shut down.
Oh wow.
And then the next time we went back, or that I took the subway back, was probably 2022 or 2023. Couple of those times we were taking my wife's parents out there to kind of see the city,
Right.
and a couple of times we just went out there on our own visits, and you could tell a difference, at least from my perspective at the time. You could kind of tell a difference,
Right.
um, and it's just difficult to imagine seeing that day to day. You see a lot of people still. We were talking about this before, right? You still see a lot of people just walking around with their heads in their phones,
I
with their
yeah,
earbuds in. They can't see or
I
they hear.
hate that shit,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah.
Like that's the problem that I had with my wife, and a lot of like females that I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is I don't I don't necessarily see it in men, but I'm sure they do it too. But then all the females I know, they're on their phone while they're walking with their
Yeah,
earbuds on, and they're just looking. They're just walking past and not knowing their surroundings.
yeah.
It's insane because I caught my wife a couple times crossing the streets, and when she's doing it, she doesn't see a car coming by.
That's terrifying.
And this is one of the biggest arguments that we have is about that, and she thinks I'm being too much when I
Yeah.
say you gotta watch your surroundings, you gotta watch who you walk into, you gotta remember this person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Like,
that's something that I started thinking about too. Like, you were talking about the fact that we're married and we have to be concerned about
yeah,
them at this point. Like women are always in a little bit more danger than men when it comes not a little, probably a significant amount more, right? When
right,
they're in the same when they're in the same location, and you mentioned in the city, a lot of times you can't, right? A lot of times you can't get away. You're on a
can't.
train,
You
and it's
can't.
not going to stop for like 90 more seconds. What are you going to do?
Right. You
Right.
you remember that time when there was a shooting on the train?
I saw some footage on that where everyone was kind of just ducked down to the
Yeah.
ground and and one person had their video phone
Yeah.
out or camera phone out. Yeah.
And I think one of the guys was trying to accuse him of being like a migrant, like a legal immigrant. So he fought the guy, and then I think the guy had a girl with him, and then the girl just stabbed that dude in the back a couple times.
Ooh.
And
Oh
so
my God.
he got frustrated, and he's like, "Oh, okay, you're gonna stab me like that," and blah blah blah. So he went into his backpack and he took out a gun, and that's how it happened.
Oh God.
And the crazy part was that my wife was going to the city because she goes to the city like well, once or two times a week
Mhm.
for her work because
Okay.
she worked remotely.
Yeah.
So that incident happened on the day she went to work, but then she probably came back like an hour before
Mm-hmm.
that same day, and I was just worried when I heard that. I was like, oh crap. Like, that I hate hearing shit like that, man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it seems like New York is really getting worse.
I think New York, from an outsider's perspective, someone who's not from this region, who hasn't lived there, it just seems like such a different beast compared to most other big cities, right? Like you got all those boroughs, everyone's living on top of each other anyway.
Right.
You have so many the cool thing about it seems that so many cultures and subcultures develop within each other,
Right.
right? But then when things start to potentially deteriorate a little bit, it's like you feel the impact probably really quickly, right? But
How do you feel about New York, Al?
I mean, the most of the times I've been to New York is just traveling through Manhattan, but the times I've been through the other boroughs, I mean, how do I say this? I mean, I I try to keep my guard up, like no matter what. But then again, of course, I'm trying not to be like too judgmental to
Mm-hmm.
everybody. But still, like I'm just I try, even though like I do also get distracted by my phone, but I still try to like I got to be aware.
When you say judgmental, you mean like,
Like
do you want to judge people just because the way they
no,
look?
by the well, not really that. It's just like the look of the area. Like it could be
Mm-hmm.
like just you see trash on the streets, or like the buildings are not cleaned up, and like you would immediately assume this is a bad area,
Mm-hmm.
but you never. That's why I said I try not to judge a book by its cover. So it's you know I'd say like it looks like a dangerous area, but maybe it's just my imagination, or like you know just
That's
me being
Yeah,
that's the
but
judgmental.
tough part with New York, right?
that's pretty tough. But then, to my knowledge, you always gotta assume the worst. Like, well, I mean, not really.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but it's still New York.
Yeah.
Like you can't let you can't basically just be like, oh, I'm okay. Nah, man. Like everywhere you go in New York, if it's in the city, man, you still gotta watch your back.
It's a different place than like Los Angeles, right? Where if you
Yeah,
don't have a car, you can't get around. Now New York, you can get
right,
on the train. Really, if you want to, you can walk like a couple hours and
right.
be well, like halfway across the city, right?
Yeah,
And although I guess talking about what you were saying, if you were talking about looking in an area where there's a lot of trash, maybe you see broken fences, graffiti. I have been proven wrong a couple of times with that though, because I've been in places where I was like, oh man, this is maybe I gotta be a little bit careful, and then as I got into it more and more, I was like, oh, I was completely wrong about this place.
yeah.
So it could
Yeah.
probably go in both directions.
Yeah. So basically, yeah. So that's why I'm just like, all right. Try not to like judge too quick, but just still like look around and just be aware.
Well,
So
yeah, I can see that. When I used to live in Manhattan, and I lived by the Lincoln Center area, and it's close by the river, right? And the train station is 10 minutes from the apartment that I was living at. And
Mm.
I used to come home late at night from work, and when I was walking 10 minutes going through that area, even though that's considered like a good area, you have your spots that looks really bad too.
Okay.
You know, um, and they always say like even though this is Manhattan, you shouldn't walk here at night. You know, I mean, they at the time they had like all these like posts. I think a girl was like at the time in that area, and they just put you know like signs all over saying like please don't walk late at night here and da da da.
Oh man.
So it's like you can't, even if it's in a good area, man. You get crappy shit like that too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kind of circling back to what we were talking about when it comes to martial arts, when it
Mhm.
comes to self defense, right? When it comes to safety, these are all things that I'm sure a lot of folks, especially with what's been going on in the news and in different neighborhoods, a lot of Asian folks are thinking about, and is one of those things where, yeah, you want to do martial arts, which is great. There's so many benefits to that, right? But how do people tie that to defending oneself, or
Right.
hopefully not even getting to that point, but just keeping a fence, for lack of a better term, right?
Right.
Like, all right, I'm here. I'm not gonna. Someone's not gonna cross into this boundary. Um, and I can imagine that's gotta be tough for someone who's new,
Right.
potentially new to martial arts, someone who's coming into it because they're terrified, for lack of a better term, right? Like
Right.
I was a scared kid when I started, right? So I can get that feel. I can understand that sentiment.
When you're talking about martial arts, right? And we were just talking about like, does it work in the streets?
Mm-hmm.
Defense wise, like self defense, martial arts, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a martial artist, you think a martial artist can defend themselves?
Depends,
Depends, right?
right? This is such a buffet line of it
Mhm.
nowadays,
Mhm.
because you hear about it a lot.
Right.
You hear about people say, "Oh, do this. This is more practical,"
Right.
right? But what does practicality mean, right? What setting is it practical for?
Yeah. So I mean, I've been in so many altercations, street fights.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say this for one thing: sometimes martial arts doesn't really have a play in it. Like it's just really messy. It's just sometimes it comes off like a regular street fight. But I will say though, because of my kickboxing background, that punching and kicking was useful
Mm-hmm.
until you go to the ground, right?
Right.
So when you go to the ground, that's when grappling would be useful. But at that
Yeah.
time, I didn't really know much about grappling, right? And they would like kick my ass when it comes to the grappling. But when it comes to grappling, there's a situation where like you gotta think like, will your grappling work with several guys?
Yeah.
Pause.
Work, yeah. Yeah, and work with several guys, and also like, unless you're like a world class jujitsu guy, right? Like,
right,
it's probably gonna take you at least a couple of seconds,
right.
to get to a lock or get to a chokehold and
Correct.
be able for it to work, right? And
There's so many different scenarios
Yeah,
that could
yeah.
happen. The guy could have a weapon. There's probably several guys that can stomp you out. Like you don't know. That's why being a long life martial artist and being physically trained and being healthy and
yeah,
I think that person would survive, But when you say self defense, right?
yeah,
Most of the time, self defense is not that person that's built for martial arts. It's just like a normal person.
yeah.
Will you think that person will survive situations like that? That's what I think
Depends
about all
on-
the time.
Yeah, you're talking about the average person who
Yeah,
has no
like
little
your,
to no
like
physical
your wife,
training.
my wife.
Right,
You
right.
know, we teach them moves. You think they'll be able to use it?
Depends on how many times they practice them,
Right.
right? So and I guess that kind of goes back to what we were both talking about earlier. It's easy for self-defense instructors to say, okay, well, this is the most practical way. This is something that you'll be able to learn very quickly. And not to say that there aren't great self-defense instructors out there, right? There are guys who could, help you improve in that area very quickly.
Right.
But the other thing is you got to put in the work too, right?
Mhm.
If you're not putting those repetitions in every day of doing whatever your objective is, right? Like, this is my block, this is my counter, this is my escape, right? Or whatever.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but there are gonna be people that just wants to learn things quick. They say, well,
Mhm.
Especially when the pandemic happened and Asians are being attacked, all these old folks and
Yeah.
normal people say, well, I want to learn something quick. I don't have time to study a couple years just so I can defend myself.
I mean, that's
That's the situation now. It's like, how do you? Is there such a self defense that can help them quick?
I don't know. I don't know if there's an answer to that,
I,
because
I don't know either.
even with you, right? You were telling the stories, like when those things were happening, you were a young guy, right?
Yeah.
You were fit, you were strong, you'd been in the ring a bunch of times, so like physically, you had already better preparation than a lot of these elders. Like,
Right.
it's like if you're 70 years old and you spend most of your life working in an office, it's kind of like, how are you going to learn something in weeks, or even months,
Right.
right? And it's one of those things. I mean, I applaud a lot of the efforts of these groups to try to help them with that.
Right.
They're addressing the problem directly, but it's kind of like, if you're a 75-year-old grandmother and your balance isn't that good, you got bad knees, it's kind of like, it's tough, man.
Yeah, here's the crazy part, man. Like some of these, self defense people that teaches, self defense. Some of them I disagree with
Hmm.
because they say, okay, we cannot teach somebody, within like a couple of like hours for them to even like try to defend themselves, right?
Right.
So what kind of solution can we find? So the solution they say is, all right, we'll put a knife in their hands, right?
Mm.
But here's the thing, right? I mean, in your mind you feel like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, right? But not a lot of people are willing to go up personally, face to face with somebody and try to stab them.
Yeah. Or what if they get it taken, right?
Yeah,
If it's like a
yeah,
70-year-old getting attacked by a 20-year-old,
yeah, of
right?
course. And if if you're the person that you're fighting has a weapon too, you're gonna be scared at.
And there's
It's
yeah,
not gonna be the same as practice anymore. You
and
know, like
there's no real way to tell what they have at the beginning, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm always like, okay, like how do you? I just don't know what is the answer for like real self defense. You
I
know.
guess also, now from this line of conversation is making me think too. It's kind of like communities gotta work together on this, right?
Right.
Like a much simpler solution to that would be, all right, and some of the groups in New York are already doing this,
Right.
right? Like let's say this 80-year-old needs to take a walk late at night and they can't avoid it. It's like, all right, well, I'll take a walk with them,
Right.
right? Something like that I think will be much better than trying to pursue that other project, right?
I even have a solution for like for elderly people is to learn how to fall.
Definitely.
I always I I had this in the back of my head back in the days when I ran a studio with a partner. Well, I came up with this idea of teaching old people how to fall, like stunt guys, like how to break fall and. But my partner at the time thought it would just be a liability issue. But I think a lot of old people should learn that. Like I mean, there are gonna be old people that can't do it,
Yeah.
but I think that should be like a lesson for all of them to learn how to at least learn how to fall.
Yeah. Well, the fitness trainer in me also thinks that kind of goal could set them up for a lot of good health benefits also,
Right.
Like that is one of the biggest risks for older folks.
Right.
Fall and break their hip, then they're bedridden, and then all kinds of health risks come in with that, right? So in the process of learning how to fall, that could help them be more flexible, be more durable, be more strong,
Right.
have more endurance, have more balance, right? Have more body awareness. And off this switching topics a little bit, but when it comes to self-defense, people always say, "Oh, well, women shouldn't go head to head with men when it comes to power," right? But I don't disagree with that part. But
You don't. I kind of disagree with it though.
I'm gonna get to the part where I kind of do.
Okay.
Whereas like for me, and part of that is from my top water Balintawak lineage, right? We focus a lot on speed, power, control. I think that in the process of training that power, you develop a lot of other benefits along the way. One, you get a good workout, and two, you have a lot of body awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and three, you're maximize what you're capable of doing anyway. So like my wife is a fairly small woman,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if I train her to develop power, one, that's going to make her healthier. She enjoys doing it, and the other part is it makes her more capable anyway, right? It's kind of like, would you rather have power or not? It's like, who will say that if you went up to someone and say, hey, I got a way to make you more powerful within 3 months, who's going to say no to that? No one's going to say no to that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but that's the thing. But it takes time to train her though.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's not
That's the rub, right?
yeah, that's not something you can do. Like, oh, okay, I'm able. You're not like one of those dudes selling snake oil and be
Mhm.
like, hey, I can teach you this self defense within 5 hours.
Yeah. It's going to be boring.
Yeah.
Your muscles are going to burn.
And that's the thing.
Right.
That's the thing with a lot of people. They
Mhm.
don't want to do that.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. But that's the tough part, man.
Yeah,
Like,
that is the
it's-
tough part.
There's what was it? I was watching another video, and they showed a clip of Wesley and the Princess Bride. They're saying like,
What's that? What?
you've seen the Princess Bride with Andre the Giant?
Oh yeah, that
Yeah,
old
yeah, yeah.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were saying that the guy was like, life is pain. Anyone who says otherwise is selling something. right?
He,
So
I don't remember that actually.
I didn't remember that until someone pulled it up.
in that scene he was arguing with the main girl. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because she was complaining like, oh yeah, but he was explaining, yeah, life is pretty much, everyone has is gonna experience pain. So yeah,
What is that quote again? Say it again.
the
It's
Princess
something like
Bride.
life is pain. Anyone who says otherwise is selling something. And it
Oh,
doesn't have to be
okay.
quite that gruesome, but yeah, it's like if you want to learn self defense and I was having a conversation with one of my training partners a while ago. It's like if someone wanted to learn self defense,
Mm-hmm.
or if someone wanted to be capable in a short amount of time, the one thing, if they could do one thing, right, go to a boxing gym. If it's just one thing, right, that's not going to complete everything. But if you want something in like a couple of months, right, and you want to be able to fight decently well, like go to a boxing gym, right? And like even with my Balintawak lineage, right, is very much not boxing itself, but like the boxing mindset, in my opinion, right? The attributes that we develop, I think it is very similar in that sense. Because it's like you're developing reactions, you're developing speed, you're developing power, you're doing conditioning, and not to toot my own horn, but it's like I try to run training sessions that way.
So you're saying that would help them in self defense, or just like, or you're saying that would help them like in able to defend themselves?
If that's their goal, yeah. And the reason I say that is it gets you in better shape, you get more endurance, you get more awareness, you learn how to give impact, you learn how to take impact. Even if you're not sparring, right? If the pad person just kind of makes sure that you got your hand up, right? And not necessarily boxing itself, but like the principles that boxing promotes, right?
I feel like that's half of it, though. You got to think about ground game. You got to think about
Yeah.
weapons.
Yeah.
I mean, that's half.
You
of
do,
it.
you do. I agree with that. I'm just saying, if there's only one thing,
Mhm.
right? Like train yourself how to move in a way that's similar to that. I guess is the point I'm getting to.
Okay.
You know,
So let
like-
me ask you this, man. I mean, we can take this out, but how do you feel about firearms?
That's one of those things where I think, especially for women, is very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard the same said by different instructors who are very experienced in that area, right? And it's one of those things where it's a touchy subject, but firearms you can think of as an extension of martial arts, right?
Yeah.
Traditionally, no one will say that archery is not a part of martial arts.
It is.
Right? So
Well, I
I
mean,
don't
yeah,
see
some
why
people
not.
don't. Some people don't.
Some
see it
people
like
might not,
that,
but
yeah.
if you look at traditional warfare, right, what culture doesn't have an archery culture,
Right.
right, or have an archery subset of that culture, right? So I think with modern technology, that might just be something that's a new, just an extrapolation of that or a
Right.
modernization of that. So like, I guess also like practice someone who's practicing martial arts. Like if I were to learn that, I would just say, all right, this is my white belt level. I need to do this, put in this many repetitions at the range to get to
Right.
yellow belt level, green
Okay.
belt, whatever's next, right?
I mean, how do you feel about it as a self defense tool?
It can be a deterrent, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like coming from the South, like people definitely where the firearms culture is a lot more prominent.
Yeah.
It's definitely a deterrent.
Yeah.
Like definitely just the idea that the person in that house might
Right.
have a firearm and they're willing and able to use it, that I'm sure that can deter a lot.
Because I know some martial artists out there, they kind of disagree with firearms as like a self defense tool. And I'm thinking like, why? I mean, if you can use it and and it's necessary, sometimes you do have to use it. Why not use it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I always feel like they don't know reality in a way. I mean, if you combine your martial arts with firearms and other stuff, I'm sure. I mean, everything is all like self defense related. If you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where, let's say, and maybe we can take this out later, but let's see. Let's say there's a 5-year-old kid, right? If you have that 5-year-old kid attack you empty-handed, you're gonna laugh. You're gonna be like, "Oh, and this is cute," right? If you have that kid attack you with a stick, you're like, "All right, I don't want to get jabbed in the eye, but still cute."
Yeah.
If you give him a knife, it's like, "Ooh, all right, put that down." If you give him a firearm, it's like, "Oh no, shit, no." Right? So I guess that's where the tool just escalates it to such a degree that I don't know if it is for everyone, but in the right hands with the right amount of responsibility,
I agree.
Right, and it's definitely not for a 5-year-old kid,
Right.
But like, I'm not sure if it's for every adult, right? Assuming that everyone's sound mind and everything.
Well, I mean, I agree. I totally agree with it because there's this, there's a saying like, it's not a saying. It's a lot of people say this, especially like correctional officers that I know, and they say, well, you fear the guy that has no skills than martial artists. If there's like a collie guy that's good in like knives, right? He said he's not scared of those guys, but he's scared of guys that don't know how to use a knife.
I've heard the same thing from There's a guy named Dr. Mark Phillips, right? The Wing Chun guy. You probably seen him, the guy in the UK, the British guy. He he does a lot of research on violence, and he would say the same thing. Like he would say, the guy who's not skilled is actually more dangerous, at least in that initial burst, because they don't have a restraint.
Right.
Like if you have a skilled boxer or a skilled kickboxer or a skilled MMA fighter, they're kind of naturally kind of pace themselves, is what you're saying, because they don't want to burn all their energy because they know that they can shoot their load in one shot, right? But
pause again.
Yeah. Pause again. But
man, you
this is an amazing episode, guys. But he was saying too, like, because they don't have the restraint, they're very, very dangerous for that. It might be only a few seconds, but those few seconds could be an eternity. It could potentially permanently change someone's life.
Right.
So that was one of the things that he was talking about, and that's been kind of similar to my experience, not in street fights, but like when I'm wrestling someone who's not skilled, especially if they're athletic and they're strong, like they do weird stuff that you're just not used to.
Let me tell you a story of my boy. He pretty much he's like a purple belt.
Okay.
Right, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
And he had to teach, because when you're on that level, that belt level, you can teach, the class a little bit.
Right.
So his instructor wasn't there, so he allowed him to teach class, and so they had like some white belts come in.
Okay.
Right. And white belts are kind of like, they don't know how to control themselves. They always feel like they need to muscle their way
they're
into
dangerous.
a position or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So he had a blue belt like roll with one of the white belts. And all he said was like the white belts are just going crazy. They're trying to like muscle in a lot of things, and it just led to one of the white belts popping one of the blue belt's leg. Just because the way he was like maneuvering,
Yeah.
And situations like that makes you think like, damn, like, I mean, that's the thing. That's like what I said about the knife, right? You place it in the person that's not trained, and they're the most dangerous, correct?
Yeah. Because they're just going on instinct.
Yeah. So it's like it's the same with this. Like, how do you? Like it's crazy to me that type of stuff happens. Like what? I mean, what is your thought on that, man? Have you since you grapple too? Do you notice things like that, like a beginner doing stuff like that as well?
Oh yeah. Not to that extreme that I've seen so far, but I will say that me personally, I would rather do Randori with a black belt or a brown belt or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I know that they're gonna
They
control
take their
things.
time.
Yeah. I mean, they're more likely to send you flying, but they're
Yeah.
gonna send you flying in a way that's controlled.
Yeah.
Versus someone who might not have as much control, but maybe they work out a lot, or maybe they have some background, something else, right? That happens a lot in grappling arts nowadays.
Right.
Like, you might get a guy who's a former D1 wrestler but doesn't know judo.
Right.
Or something to that degree. And if they're explosive and they're strong and they're coordinated, but they might spaz in a direction that you're not used to, that's something you really got to be aware of. And striking art is probably also similar, right? People might take a wild swing from a weird angle. And, maybe you tag them 5 times, but they might swing a wild haymaker, just catch that one time.
Right.
And not saying that's happened to me.
And what the weird part is like a lot of like street fights, especially when there's a street fight and they have no skills, they're always trying to knock each other out, like punch each other out in the face. They never think about kicking the balls or hitting the stomach or anything like that.
Yeah, they're not lining anything up.
Yeah,
right?
it's kind. It's interesting that how stuff like that works.
Yeah, and I guess what we're kind of getting to here is that each is dangerous in their own way, right? Like someone like Israel Adesanya, he actually said something interesting. He said, "I don't throw and hope, I aim and fire." It's kind of like if he's sitting back and just waiting, it's like, oh no, this guy's going to get knocked out,
bro.
Right?
Speaking of him,
yeah,
did you see a recent photo of him going on a roller coaster ride? Like the dude. They took a photo of him and his family on a roller coaster ride. Everybody's like, ah. He's the only one like this.
You talking about Adesanya or Pereira?
Oh, it's Pereira.
Yeah, it was
right?
Pereira. Yeah. He was the one. Yeah.
That was so fucking funny, bro.
Nah, I just love how he's completely leaned into the fact that people make fun of him for looking like an Easter Island statue.
Yeah.
And he just kind of goes with it. What were you saying now?
No, that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, nah,
he was like a war. He's just like, I don't care.
Yeah, we were watching TV late last night when my wife and I were about to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And I was showing him, an interview with Pereira, and Pereira, I guess. And that dude is sneakily funny. Like, cause before his second match with Adesanya in the UFC, this interviewer gave him a jacket with Pikachu on the back.
Oh wow!
And
wait, I think I remember that.
And you see this massive dude. He's like 6'5" and like gigantic hands,
Right.
and they call him Politan, right? Means stone hand in his native language. And he's over there with a jacket on, just like Pikachu. I'm like, yeah, but it's one of those things where like you see a guy like that, you see him just like all stone faced, right? They compare him to that statue. They're just like. Right, you don't think that you don't think that he would crack the jokes that he talks.
Right, it's crazy.
Yeah, he has the best walkout.
Yeah,
when that music comes on, he does that arrow firing. I love seeing that. I love seeing that. Well, he said that his connection with his heritage helped him overcome his alcohol addiction.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it's legit, man. Like it helped him in a big way psychologically.
Speaking of which, does your wife know about situations like self-defense and how does she feel about that?
Well,
because I know you do teach her Berlin to walk.
Yeah.
So how does she feel about self-defense?
She's always been actually very aware of just situations that she's in. And also I think because growing up in crowded cities, right? Because of growing up in places where maybe she had to really watch herself. In some ways, she's actually better about that than I am.
Yeah.
And like when she first started living with me, she was always wary, even when we go out. Like she was like, "Oh, this person is doing so and so." What about this person doing that? I'm like, "Oh, okay."
I mean, she is Vietnamese, man. You know how Vietnamese is like.
Oh, I know.
They're they're badass.
I know. She like first couple of times I had her. But this was before she knew anything. I had her throw a couple of punches at my hand, and after a couple, I was like, ow.
Right. Oh wow.
Yeah. So nice, and she loves Balintwa. She loves martial arts. She would do it more if she had time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really happy with her in that way, and when it comes to self defense, she definitely sees the importance,
right?
And she sees it from the perspective of just being a small Asian woman, like being safety being a number one priority,
I mean, that's good. That's a good thing because a lot of women would avoid it. They're saying like, well, never gonna happen, so I'm gonna avoid it.
Yes,
You know, I mean, to be honest, my wife is like that.
yeah.
You
I mean,
know,
and she's told me about some people she's talked to,
yeah.
that also avoid the topic, like some Asian women that she's talked to that
Hmm.
also avoid that topic. Is pretty unfortunate. It is a little worrisome. And I think like when a lot of this news first started coming out of these attacks, yeah, it definitely was something that she was very much aware of.
Right.
Um, and it's tough, but yeah, I'll have her talk to your wife. Don't worry. So it's one of those things where yeah, it is
I hope
important.
my wife doesn't hear this. She's gonna beat my ass, bro.
She does have a heavy punch. I know you
Yeah.
disagree, but she's got a good punch.
Yeah. But she hates it. You know, sometimes we have like heavy arguments about, you know, self defense and stuff like that. And then one time we had a big argument. It was you know, she goes to the city and she talks among her colleagues like at her workplace, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, she would always say, "Oh, my husband tell me to watch out and watch my back."
Mm-hmm.
And they say, "How do we watch our back? That's ridiculous." So I'm thinking, like, how is that ridiculous? So you know, I get offended by it. So I would argue with her, like, how is that ridiculous?
I mean, do
You-
they think that you're telling them to do this or or what?
No, I think it's all it's kind of like I feel maybe sometimes in their minds they probably think I'm one of those guys that stands in the street like the earth is gonna end soon.
Oh,
So
that,
please,
yeah.
you know, like you guys gotta prepare yourself. Like I
Mhm.
think they probably see me like that, you know.
Mm.
But like I just want her to be able to like know her surroundings, know, you know, what if this person's wearing like a red shirt or
Yeah.
whatever, you know, like if something happens, you have a description and knowing who this perp is,
Yeah.
you know?
And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like if somebody falls in front of her, you
Yeah.
make sure they don't trip over it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Especially in a crowded place like New York, right?
Right,
So
right.
yeah,
Even like asking her to carry mace or
Mhm.
like any self-defense tool, she doesn't want to carry it at all.
oh,
That's
yeah,
hard. I mean, it's not. Don't get me wrong. It's not just her.
yeah. But
But
that's very
tons
common.
there's tons of people like that, especially elderly folks. You know, when it comes to self defense, they're like, "I'm too old for self defense now." And they're not dumb. They do know that self defense takes time,
Yeah.
especially like all these different groups that's teaching self defense for free, right?
Right.
How do you feel on that, man? Because sometimes I kind of disagree with a lot of the teaching methods.
Yeah, I disagree with a lot of their teaching methods also. I would say like the positive side of it is that they are improving,
Okay.
right? So I see that they're improving through practice. I see that they're you know, off addressing this issue directly, right? Which a lot of folks are not. I think it is still a step above burying your head in the sand,
Right.
right? Or even denying that it's happening. What I would say is it's important to view that in the context of what it is, right? It's an important, potentially important part. It's good for community building. It's good for getting people out and active and socializing.
Okay.
It's important for understanding certain movements, but
Okay.
is one piece of a puzzle.
Right. Do you agree that if people are teaching that, they have to be experts at it, or even like at least aware and know what they're teaching? Because there's a lot of people that's out there teaching. It's all hogwash, bro. Like straight up, like it's bullshit. Like
Mm.
snake oil for real. And it's like, you know, and some people are saying like, well, it's free, so that's what they're learning, right?
Right. Yeah.
And how do you like do you feel that that's like something like messed up? Like, I mean, somebody could probably learn self defense from online, and then they're trying to teach old folks this.
yeah.
You know?
'Cause I go back and forth on that sometimes.
Yeah,
'cause
I have a problem with that sometimes too.
if kind of what we were talking about before, before we got on air, right? It's one of those things where like, if you really want to learn self-defense from the perspective of being safe, right? Practice how to sprint. Right, it's one of those things where, assuming that you're relatively healthy,
Practice
and young,
how to sprint. Why
Yeah.
you say it? Because of cardio, like conditioning, like
cardio, conditioning, getting away, right? You can. I mean, there are specific situations where you can't, like if you're both in a subway car and the doors aren't going to open,
Okay.
right? That's one situation where you can't.
But you
But-
can't really say that to an old person, though.
Yeah. So that's
You
why I
know?
say, like, if you're young and healthy. If you're
Yeah,
older,
if you're young and healthy, yes, I agree.
yeah. If you're older, I would say go back to what we were saying earlier. Is like, make sure you're not outside by yourself.
Yeah,
Make sure you have assistance when you're like carrying groceries. Make sure that you tell someone where you're going, or make sure they have someone to come check on you.
right.
There's a lot more to that, right? There's a lot of like community service work that could be
Right.
done in the service of, for the purpose of enhancing safety. Like, you don't need to
I
tell.
wish there was a lot of that.
I wish
though.
there was more of that. Yeah, you don't need to tell grandma how to mace someone in the face,
Yeah.
because honestly, by the time she's getting that mace and trying to put it up there, it might get snatched away,
Right,
or like if she doesn't hit the target, it's like, what now,
right.
So it's one of those things where I think when it comes to, like, let's say the Asian community or the Chinese community, Korean community, whatever it is,
I think in America it's just the Asian community because
Yeah,
they
yeah,
are gonna
yeah.
think.
yeah, that
You
too,
know,
but-
they say it's like, oh, like let's just attack Asians. I mean, let's attack Chinese, right?
right.
But what Asian folks don't understand is like it doesn't matter if you're Vietnamese, Korean, Thai, whatever. You're Chinese in their eyes, no
Yeah.
matter what.
Yeah,
So, I don't think it's a good idea to throw one, one
Yeah.
like race under the bus just because you want to save yourself, And I see
Yeah,
that a lot,
definitely not.
especially in our community,
Mhm.
especially our Asian community. They throw each other under the bus a lot,
Yeah, that's a tough one too, because it's one of those things, and I guess that kind of gets into, like, there needs to be a lot more done from a community involvement perspective.
Right.
Right? It's like one of those things where, all right, martial arts plays a role, but maybe the role that it plays isn't what we thought.
Right.
Or maybe that role isn't as big as what we thought, or is big, but it's big in a different way.
Yeah.
Right.
I
And-
mean, I see Chinatown. They do that. They have a patrol all the time.
Okay.
But I think they should have some kind of system where like an elderly person can sign up a program for like if they need to go grocery shopping and they have like somebody can go with them.
There is a program like that. I don't know if it's specific to Chinatown, but I have heard of like safe walks where they do have younger people try to escort elderly.
Oh wow, okay. So
Yeah.
I mean, they should have that everywhere then.
Yeah, they should have that everywhere, and hopefully they end up having more groups like safe
Yeah, yeah.
walks, right? And yeah, I think
I
it's
don't
like
know
a
why that's
volunteer
not like
group.
a government issued thing. Like
Yeah.
they have a special program for that.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean
you
that
know, like a career wise, like maybe somebody can do a
Oh,
job like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. It's a necessity in a place like New York, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll have plenty of hours to put in during the week.
Right.
But looking back at the other issue when it comes to like community involvement, community help, when it comes to teaching people those methods, right? And you were talking about people teaching hogwash, right?
Uh-huh.
Do they have to be like a BJJ black belt or Muay Thai champion? Absolutely not, right? But they do have to know what they're showing them. They have to know on the other side how that person's gonna potentially interpret that and
Right.
utilize that,
Right.
right? Because really, it's not about you; it's about the people you're teaching,
Right.
right? And like for me, that's something I try to keep in mind also when I teach Blintwalk, right? It's like is going to be about focusing on developing them. And that process, that's going to come back, right? Because my students get better, then I get better because they challenge me more and I have to push myself more. But that's speaking as a martial arts class.
Well, are you teaching them in a way that's like, well, of course you're teaching them to motivate them, right?
Mhm.
But are you teaching? I just hope you're not teaching them to a point where it's like it's false, like for example, like there's some schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll motivate their students to like, yeah, you're able to do this now, do that now, and you force this type of confidence in them,
Mm-hmm.
and they go out and they thinking they can fight everybody.
Yeah,
You see, that's the scary
that's the
part.
worst.
And I see it in a lot of like students from different schools that has that, right? And then when they go out and fight, they end up getting themselves killed or get beat up, and then they realize like, oh
Yeah.
crap, what the hell, you know?
Well, that's the difference I think between self-defense and combat, right?
Well, yeah.
Like, it's one of those things where even if it's like a hand-to-hand situation, if your goal is self-defense, you can approach it probably very differently than if your goal is combat,
Right.
right? And that's one of those things where it is important, like you were saying, to make sure that you know what you're actually giving them.
You got to be honest with them too. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Like
Yeah.
there's so many times people will come up to my instructors and be like, is there a way you can teach me how to defend against a knife, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the instructor that I know would say like, well, we can't teach you how to defend against a knife. We can teach you how to survive a knife.
I've heard that
Right?
from other people that I trust also.
But there are instructors that say, well, we can teach you how to defend against a knife and not get cut. Like those are
Yikes.
scary, man. Like, like and to be honest, like I used to believe those type of instructors back in the days.
I mean,
Yeah.
that was one of the, you've done FMA,
Yeah.
right? Filipino martial arts,
Yeah.
and you still do it, right? And we've all done it, like Al's done it too.
Yeah.
I think that that's what draws a lot of people into it. That's what drew me into it, right?
Yeah.
Like you see movies or scenes or show scenes with knife fights. Like, oh man, that's cool. I want to be like that guy.
Right.
But yeah, like from the experienced people that I trust, is more along the lines of what you were saying. Is like, yeah, I can teach you how to not go to the morgue,
Yeah.
like go to the hospital instead of
Right.
the morgue, right? But yeah, they've all said that getting touched with the blade is very, very almost impossible to avoid.
Yeah, it's impossible to avoid. I mean, Al, what do you think? Like, since you dabble into Filipino martial arts nowadays, do you feel, especially knives, right? What do you think of?
Well, I will admit, like, even though I've dabbled with with Filipino martial arts, I still can't say like I can use that to defend myself because I only like it's the dabbles. I haven't like trained so much in it, but it just makes me more aware that it's scarier out there. Like if if I ever get into a situation, like maybe hopefully not, but if I ever do, like I may know some moves, but it's still not like still not be able to like defend me to not get cut. But like hopefully,
Yeah, it's impossible.
but
yeah.
like maybe my survival rate is like up a percentage or two, but like it's still like a scary situation
Right.
to be in.
Right.
So like for me dabbling with it, I feel like I feel a little more confident, but still like scared that if it does happen, again, God forbid
Yeah,
it doesn't.
so you feel like you will get cut no matter what.
Yeah, no matter
you know,
what, no matter what, I'm gonna get
yeah.
hit. But it's just that now I feel like a little, just a little, like some percentage more that I can
Yeah.
maybe do like get one hit in. But then
Yeah, there's some schools that like they proudly say, hey, well, if you learn under me, you would never get cut. I was
yeah,
like, that's
Mm.
bullshit.
yeah.
Man.
There was this one a school that I did learn under. They kept on saying that if you learn from us, we'll teach you like how not to get hit with a knife. So that's why if you learn these certain moves, you'll be able to you'll be good. And I'm like,
But that's the crazy part is like how do these schools say that? Like in reality, a lot of these schools also say that they're knife experts, they're knife fighters, right? So when you think about it, it's like, how are you a knife fighter? You never. It's like, have you gone outside to like use it to kill somebody, or
Mm.
it's kind of crazy that they say these things, and you're kind of thinking, well, are you a knife fighter? Like, you're telling me that you went out to even test this?
Yeah.
Some of them never
It's-
tested it. How do you know it's gonna be legit? That
Yeah, or like if they did how do you know that? How do you know the exact account of what they said is true, right? Like we don't
Yeah,
have.
yeah,
It's not like we can just pull up footage of knife fighting matches like we
yeah,
could a kickboxing match set,
yeah.
So.
That's what I'm saying when it comes to self defense, right?
Mhm.
Especially normal people that come to look for classes that's gonna teach them, that way. Like, you know, how do they how do these schools would feel confident enough to teach them that, and they will
Yeah.
be able to defend themselves like that. I just don't. To me, I just don't understand. Like you have like one side that's desperate to like learn the art, and then you have like a school that teaches them like snake oil.
Yeah.
Anything to make a buck.
Yeah, right.
Unfortunately.
And I guess also like for me, I teach because I want to spread the legacy of my teacher and my grandmaster,
Mm-hmm.
and also like I enjoy it. That's a big part of it too. I love these arts, right? And it does a lot to bring groups of friends together.
Mm-hmm.
It does give them more confidence because they're able to learn some skills of movement.
Right.
But that is the thing. Like I try to keep it in context of what they're actually doing, right? Like trying to develop good biomechanics habits. If they were trying to, let's say, prevent themselves from getting tagged by something.
Let me get yours, bro.
But also, okay. All right, let's switch back here.
There you go.
There we go. There we go. Oh, so you like the carbonation?
Yes.
Okay. Probably finish this before I don't want to try to mix them.
What you
Is
say?
it the same brand? No, it's
No, it's not the same brand. No.
But it's got the same. It's got the same name. No, Michael. No, never mind. But it's one of those things where we can't. I think as instructors, like we really got to be careful with that gap between what we promise and what we deliver.
Right.
Right. It's one of those things where I could tell a students like, hey, you're getting quicker. You're able to move your torso better to avoid getting hit, or like you're having more hand awareness. But like, hey, you have to make sure that you're moving your feet. Or like, hey, your feet are quick, but your balance isn't good, or like your body, or like you're strong but you're tight. It's one of those things that kind of
Right.
like
Mm-hmm.
I guess also like it depends on what mindset you're coming at it from, right? If I just wanted to like build a following and I wanted to make money, right? Sure, I'll say whatever to keep people coming through the door, right? But if the goal is to develop that other person into being better at whatever they're working on, right? I might get it wrong. I don't know everything, right?
Right.
Far from it. But if I get it wrong, I'll try to figure out why I got it wrong.
Yeah, but won't these instructors that like I said sell snake oil, won't they know that there's consequences later on? That it will backfire. I just don't understand.
I mean, this is also kind of getting into like just it kind of connects with what we were talking about last time, right? It's like weird characters in martial
Yeah,
arts or interesting
yeah.
characters in martial arts. Like sometimes you can get guys with legit skills and legit ability, but they could believe in some woo-woo stuff too.
Right.
And this discussion has reminded me of one time my kung fu friends and I, we went to take a visit out to the West Coast for some of our kung fu family out there.
California.
Yeah, Bay Area.
Okay.
First time I was out there, it was amazing area. Food's great, and people are great. This was it's probably like 7 years ago. So we met. The martial arts culture out there is incredible.
Right.
So it's just so many people who are good, but like just not very well known. A lot of people teaching out of the garage, a lot of people teaching for free in parks, And there was one guy who was in his mid-70s at the time, and really good, like really good Tai Chi. He did a power issue on me, like I stumbled back like 8 feet, like I like stuck to the wall for a second.
Right.
I was like, oh man, this old man's powerful. And he said Tai Chi's always done. I asked him a little bit about his history. He said, yeah, I was in my late 30s. I was having a lot of health problems because I was working, 80-hour weeks or something to that effect, traveling a lot, so my sleep was all screwed up. And Tai Chi helped me overcome, like, he had some serious stomach issues. I think he had ulcers or something.
Mm-hmm.
And his students were good. Like, even those who practiced with him a couple times a week, you could tell they had pretty good ability. Just like, you know those groups of aunties that do that do Tai Chi in the parks,
Yeah.
right? It was like that, but you could tell that their movement was good, right? And they were good because of him, and all they did was practice them twice a week. It's not like they were, on a crazy regimented schedule, right? So that, I think that speaks to his abilities as a teacher and as a Tai Chi guy. But then he was like, all right, this is the skill level I'm trying to get to. Watch this. He shows me a video of a guy doing the no touch knockout, right? The guy in the video he showed me was like doing this, and everyone in the crowd was just like, oh wow,
Right,
and just like
right.
falling over.
Right.
And he was like, man, see, there's no way he could have fooled all those people. I was like, okay, you're good at Tai Chi. I'll just stay with that, because like I guess sometimes you just kind of gotta. Part of it's like we're all human, we all have some beliefs that other people might think are weird,
Right.
right? So it's like kind of like, all right, this guy's good at Tai Chi. He's got some weird thoughts in these other areas. All right, this guy's good at Tai Chi. I'll just take from that,
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure you met people like that, right? People, maybe they were good at the stuff that they did, but they were bad as people, or like they understood one aspect of martial arts very well. Not even martial arts, but just one aspect of something very well, but then they had some really weird beliefs in other areas, right? So
Yeah.
people
I
are weird,
mean,
man. People are
this-
complicated.
There's a lot of different martial arts practitioners I know that it's almost kind of like the superstitious behind the art,
Mm-hmm.
like and they'll say things like, oh, like it I seen it, or I've done it.
Yeah.
Where like for example, this one guy that I know, he used to take like a wet cloth
Mm-hmm.
or wet tissue,
Okay.
and he would just rub it, and then all of a sudden it just smokes. That's what he says. Like it just,
You've seen it smoke?
I
Or he
didn't
says-
see
or
it.
he
Like
has
he
says it
said,
smoked?
he said it.
Oh.
I didn't witness it myself, but then he showed me videos on it too. I don't know if he's like Filipino or some kind of Chinese,
Mm-hmm.
but it showcased this man doing that same thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And then all of a sudden he said, and he's like, I'm not really supposed to show that, and he just vanished or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, I mean, I don't know, but it's just like, how come I don't see that a lot,
Yeah, well, I would say, I guess, if you want to have a completely open mind, like,
I mean,
We-
to cut you off, I could do that too, which is like, was it liquid ice? What was it?
liquid nitrogen.
Yeah, liquid
Yeah, yeah,
nitrogen.
yeah.
Just do this, right? But anyways, go ahead.
And then next thing you know, you got frostbite. But it's one of those things where, from an exercise science perspective or a human physiology perspective, there are a lot of things that we do not know yet of what the human body is capable of doing.
Okay.
Right? How often people can achieve different levels of ability, that's a very different question.
Well, do you believe in those chi powers, like those Hadoukens?
I don't believe that most of the people who say they can do it.
What do you mean by that?
By that I mean, like, if someone says that they can Hadouken, right?
Yeah.
They probably can't. But I would say that my thought process towards that is never say never. But at the same time,
Okay.
I have to actually feel it before I'll believe it. It's
Oh
one of those
yeah,
things.
I'm the same, man.
It's one of those
I think
things-
I think
yeah.
that's with a lot of like martial artists
Yeah.
that are like genuine with the art, right? They say like this one guy, he's a martial artist in China, but he's not Chinese. He's like a white guy,
Mhm.
right? But he's like an MMA fighter, and then he believed he said that he gives props to I think it was a Tai Chi.
I think I heard the story. Yeah.
Yeah, Tai Chi man, right? And he
Yeah,
said that he threw him all over the place, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he said, in order to believe in it, he had to witness it himself,
Yeah.
right? So my thing is the same thing. Like, for me to believe in it, you have to do it. You have to perform those
Yeah.
those things on me to see if I believe it or not, right? I mean, I'm sure you agree the same thing, right, Al?
Yeah, like I like it's I gotta like be there and actually like have it happen to me to actually believe it.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
think that's with a lot of people though.
because
Yeah.
anybody could say like they can do it, but you get in you never know it's actually true or not. So like, I'd rather be there in person to actually
Yeah.
see it to believe it.
Yeah, and I guess also like, there's because when you get into this area, it's like it gets really murky because there's no video footage, right? But
Yeah.
so you're kind of trusting people, and I've heard that account. And I think from what I can tell that he is telling the truth. Like maybe with some changes in detail, right? Just because of memory, but
But why you're talking about the dude from China?
the MMA guy in China,
Yeah, like why would he lie about that?
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
thing. Like, he's all about being practical, right?
He's
That's
all about
he
being
talks
practical.
about, right?
Yeah, and it's not like he has problems making fun of martial arts frauds
Yeah.
either, because I've seen
So
that guy.
yeah, so why would he lie about that? That's the thing,
Yeah, well, if anything, it was a cool story because I heard him in an interview about that later. He said, "Yeah, that guy actually inspired me to kind of reintegrate myself into martial arts." He said at that time I was kind of at a spot where I kind of didn't want to do martial arts anymore,
Hmm.
and he said he got inspired by the guy who was like 80 at the time. Would be 90 now if he's still alive.
Right.
And yeah, it is one of those things like you wonder why he would make something like that if he would, right? I don't think he would. And like if I haven't personally felt certain things, right? Pause. But like if I hadn't personally witnessed certain things by different internal martial arts, and internal martial arts is one of those things like you gotta feel it.
Yeah.
You can't just watch it because if you watch from the outside, a lot of times it just looks like that, right? But you do have to feel it. Like, are they going to be able to necessarily do it the same way in a full contact kickboxing match? Probably not. But like most people can't do that even in their same control setting, right? So
Right.
it does show that they develop their bodies and their movement to a certain degree. How much farther could they go down that road? I don't know. Like I think that's an area where most people, even who do martial arts, aren't going to delve towards, right? Because like I think most people,
I would like to say I'm like that too. Like I would never. I don't know because I never experienced it. Like I probably just I never had anybody that would show me. Like, yeah, I mean, this sounds fucked up, but the mystical side of like certain martial arts. But I hear stories. I know it's there, but I'm a type of guy that's like I have to witness it to believe in it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you're the same way, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's if if I don't feel anything towards it, I don't go towards that. It's the same thing with the Filipino martial arts, right? They talk about that like I don't know, but judging by a lot of the people that I train with, they believe in it. And the thing is, like, I never seen a non-believer, right? But a lot of them believe in it. They talk about this stone that they put in there,
Oh, I've heard of that.
right?
Yeah.
And then they say that it protects them, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with like Thai martial arts, right?
Mhm.
Thai, like especially a lot of the Muay Thai guys and stuff like that. They get like Thai style or like Khmer scriptures, which is like the Cambodian scriptures, and they say that protects your body, or
Yeah.
it could protect your body from like people shooting at you, or warn off evil spirits, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, to be honest, like I don't know. I don't know if it's a thing, but they say it is. So I never witnessed. I can't really,
Right.
I mean, well, how do you feel about that though? Like,
I mean, that's one of those things where I feel like, from my layman's perspective on that, because I'm not expert in that by any
Yeah.
means, right? But
I'm not either.
yeah,
So,
I feel like that's a product of the time and place that it came up in,
mhm.
right? It's one of those things where, like, to make a bad analogy, right? Let's say that you wanted to make the best Laos dish that you could possibly make,
I can do that.
right? But in the place that you live in, they don't have those ingredients, so you got to substitute,
Right.
right? No matter how skilled you are, it's probably not gonna be as good as you would if you had the right. It would be if you had the right ingredients, right?
Yeah.
So it's like maybe something about that time and place. It
It's-
has the ingredients for
It's like
whatever
making
that goal is.
it's like making Italian pizza in California.
I mean, we joke, but it's true, right? Like if the water's not as good, the dough's not gonna rise the same.
Yeah,
right?
that's the thing.
Right. So it's one of those things where I wonder if that's a product of the time and place, and also
I mean, different topic is I didn't have good pizza until I moved to New York. Cause I originally from California.
oh, that's right. I heard stories about people shipping pizza from here to there.
Yeah, I seen that. Yeah,
Man, Chicago pizza too, right? I don't know about Chicago
that's
pizza.
another topic.
Yeah.
Because some people don't consider Chicago pizza a pizza.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they think it's a freaking cheese
Yeah.
pepperoni stew.
Yeah. Let's save this before we get the third
Yeah,
largest
right,
before we get the
good.
third largest
Yeah,
city in the
let's go
country mad at us.
back.
Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
But anyway, where was I going? Oh, the local time and place that it takes place in. Like that might be a specific thing,
Right.
because like I'm sure you've seen it too. Like so much stuff can get lost in translation,
Of course.
right? So like who knows what we're not getting? It's like when it comes to a scripture or like what it's supposed to do to have an effect on the person, like does the person have to have some sort of understanding that maybe isn't what the popular story is outside of that place, right? So it's
Right.
like, yeah, that gets tough. Like I feel like that's something that's difficult to understand without actually really like being a part of that community in that time and place,
Mm-hmm.
because like, and the reason I say that is because like for example with Chinese martial arts, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if I hear the name of a technique in English versus if I hear the name of a technique in Chinese, my takeaway is different, right? And this is
Really?
just me, like my Chinese isn't the best, right? But even like for me, I could take away something very different. Like what about how much more different is it gonna be from someone who lives in that time and place versus someone who might live in Los Angeles and they're learning, Hongga or whatever, right? Right? They might adapt it to, I don't know, let's just say East LA,
Mm-hmm.
compared to Foshan in the 1910s or something. So I guess that's my long-winded way of saying it's hard to really understand that if you're not of and from that culture, right? Not that it can't be done, like people have done that, and I learned from people who have done that,
Right.
like who learned it as someone who's not of that culture, but it's difficult, especially with something that's that niche, right? It's like how many people who get into martial arts here are really going to look into that specific topic, right? Oh, what scripture should I put across my chest to give myself the ability to resist spears or something,
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, martial arts has so many different elements. They have like the spiritual side. They have the self defense, the combat side. It's like it's crazy. It's crazy how like But I think with every martial arts comes from different like countries. They have their religion and their culture and
Yeah.
it plays into the martial arts world. So I mean I find it interesting, but at the same time I always question it as well.
I think it's important to do both.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always got to investigate, it's like if you really want to be a part of it, I feel like it's important for us to contribute something to it, right? And part of our contribution is going to be asking questions, but after asking questions, I think we got to put in the work too. Like we can't just keep sitting there and asking questions.
Right.
That's actually something that I think is easy for us to get caught up in. It's like, oh, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What's this going to be for? It's like, well,
You
if you put in a bunch of repetitions, you might get it.
right.
You know.
What I was thinking like it'll be fun to do. It's like you remember those old shows where they had like fight signs, and it's like fight requests, fight quest or something
Fight
like
Quest, and Human Weapon.
that. Right.
And
So-
they've done like different versions of that in
Right.
Hong Kong and China and
Yeah,
like
yeah. I
Kung
know.
Fu Quest
yeah,
experience, exploring real Kung Fu or something like that.
So I was thinking of doing something like where you and I can like travel the world.
Yeah.
And do and basically dabble into their cultural martial arts, but then in the spiritual version of it.
Sure,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
like why does this type of martial art has this type of like
Yeah.
some even have black magic, some even have,
Yeah.
like I want to dabble into that world actually.
Yeah, I would love
you
to.
know?
I would love to really approach that and just like, I mean, I don't think we would even need to like fight their champion at the end. Right?
Yeah,
I feel
of course,
like
I don't
feel
need
like most
that.
of
It's just
I feel like most of that stuff's staged anyway,
you
at
know
least to some degree.
because they always have some kind of reason why that's done like that.
Yeah.
Some kind of truth to it in
yeah,
a way.
just kind of like immerse with
Yeah.
them like
Yeah.
months or
Yeah.
or just like see how they live, how
Right.
they eat, and everything else. Right now, I would love to do something
So
like
if
that.
somebody's watching this and they like what they see, come talk to us.
Yes.
And sponsor us so we can do this. I would love to do that.
Yeah. We promise we'll make it look good.
Right.
But no, that'll be very fun.
Yeah.
That'll be very fun, and that's really just like it's I heard someone say it, and I agree. Martial arts is a study in human beings,
Yeah.
right? Because it's universal. Every civilization throughout history has had it in some form,
Right.
right? And then you learn about what kind of tools did these people have, what kind of terrain did they live in, what was their society like, at least in that level,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Yeah, because like, with like a lot of these Chinese and Filipino martial arts I see is family driven. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
you learn from your dad or you learn from your uncle, you learn from your family friend,
Right,
and it's
right.
only like you and maybe one or two classmates and the instructor. Yeah, so just thinking along those lines, right? Thinking about the idea of possibly traveling and immersing ourselves with these different martial arts cultures, like
Yeah.
interacting with different people, hanging out with them, breaking bread with them. I mean, that was kind of how we started this idea, right?
Right,
Like,
yeah,
we
man.
both love talking about this shit, and we just kind of, it's like, oh, why not just put a camera and mics on and everything
Right,
else and
right.
start doing it, We're doing it anyway, so
Right.
it's a fun time. So, no, it's great.
Yeah. That's it for now. You like to say something more to the audience?
Yeah, no, thank you guys for supporting the channel. I mean, we see the subs
Cheers.
going up,
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And, if you like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, suggest any topics that you want us to talk about. We're open to anything. And see you on the next one.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Bye.